Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday night. Goodness, what a scene that was in Kansas City yesterday at about this time between the Titans and the Chiefs. Certainly, we're going to get to that because obviously we didn't do a primetime show after the game in overtime. The Titans falling, the 5-game win streak broken for the time being, and a very, very difficult loss to take. A hard-fought game, and certainly a lot of things to be impressed about that we'll go through. We'll also talk about how inept the Indianapolis Colts look. Frank Reich fired earlier this morning in the middle of while we were doing the radio show. I think at some point in the 11 a.m. hour. Was crazy to see that news, and apparently their press conference is just wrapped up. We'll also do this as a free site because we weren't on Sunday night, and that's typically our custom. But as we get you through to halftime of Sunday Night Football, we're going to take a look at a lot of different things that involve the AFC South. Before we can do any of that, though, I would invite you guys to share this show. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet it in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or Twitch, please subscribe to the channel like Andrew Frill, maybe Derrick Henry's burner. You can like the video while you're there on YouTube as well, and we would be grateful for you getting involved that way. Tell a friend to like the video as well. And if you are on Facebook Live, like Roy L. Wright or Karen O'Keefe, you can share now to public in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So what a scene it was, and what a lot of things to talk about. I got back from Kansas City at about 9 a.m. today, and certainly had a lot of observations that we have to dive into. So let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Superbook Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com, the intel edge you need to succeed with the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators, GaryAshton.com. Two Rivers Ford, where you go for the best car buying experience humanly possible. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Superbook Sports, where you go to get in on all the action. You could have bet Monday Night Football. You can bet Thursday night, college football, MLB over, but college basketball officially back as of this evening. Tennessee getting a win, as did my Indiana Hoosiers. You can wager on all these things at superbook.com. TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch, downtown Nashville, a fantastic place to work out, and your first workout free when you go up to TrueMavFitness.com to sign up as a Middle Tennessee resident. So, a lot of ground to cover, given that we did not have a primetime show last night, but a few things that we have to work off of this game. It was, and I covered this morning on the radio show, man, and I felt even more strongly about it today after going back and watching through once I got home and had a little time to kind of rest, recuperate, then throw it back on because I knew I was going to be in for a bit of a different viewing experience. And I mean, while there were some things that were different from my vantage point in the press box at Arrowhead last night versus watching it back on television, the only thing that I can say is it was such a travesty to see how close they were to winning that game. For as hard as they fought, for as well as they played, Mike Vrabel said that he could not have been more proud of him. Mike always says something to that effect, but I don't know how you couldn't feel exactly the same way watching the product that was put on the field. Now, as to the places where it failed, there was a moment in the locker room. So the Titans lose that game in overtime. There's all kinds of officiating errors. The defense is on the field for 91 plays. Patrick Mahomes breaks the franchise record for the Chiefs for the most passing attempts in a single regular season game, 68. Mahomes completed 43 of 68. Malik Willis was 5 of 16, and they only lost by 3. It took overtime to do it, and still the defense held. So we get through all of these different things last night. We get through Mike Vrabel's press conference, and then after Mike speaks, we go into the locker room. And in the locker room, man, that is where it really struck me particularly hard. because the defensive guys just look total like ghosts, right? Ghosts of themselves, hurt, banged up, battered, bruised, exhausted, dehydrated, just emotionally overwhelmed. And in talking to Jeff Simmons specifically, I asked him, hey, how are you feeling right now? And he just, it was a long pause and he goes, I've just got to get healthy. And I don't know how he does it because they're in the middle of this thing. And, dropping a game to the Chiefs is not the end of the world, but the Broncos are an inferior opponent. But you cannot get caught sleeping against worse teams when you've lost to the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities of the world so far. It's a lot to ask. And Mike, I think, was overwhelmed with the effort that they gave. And just two moments in particular, though, that really struck me, and they both revolved around wide receivers. And so when I went into the locker room after I talked to Jeff, I think the second person that I talked to was Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, one of the wide receivers, the Titans wide receivers. It's been well documented how much of a non-factor they've been comparative to their peers and with other teams across the league. And specifically, the comparisons consistently made to A.J. Brown. Sunday Night Football had the graphic. A.J. Has fewer receptions, obviously, than the Titans wide receiving core, but he has 5 more touchdowns than all of them combined. He has more yards than all of them combined. And in fact, 7 wide receivers, 7 pass catchers in the NFL so far this season have more receptions, have more receiving yards. Individuals have more receiving yards than the Titans wide receiver core as a collective whole. So I want to ask you this question. Your Two Rivers Ford take here on the Primetime Show. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you can interact with us. So based off the results of that game last night, whose feet do you place the blame at most? Like, who are you looking around after the fact? Because, I saw a lot of criticisms of Todd Downing. Derrick Henry was working so well, and it just seemed like it kind of evaporated all of a sudden in the second half after they put together a spectacular second quarter to do well, to score points, to widen, to further the gap, to take the lead, and to allow their defense to play the way that the defense is capable of playing. So your Two Rivers Ford take is this. Who do you blame most for the Titans' loss to Kansas City last night? We'll get into that before we talk about Frank Reich. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. It's made possible by Two Rivers Ford. 2023 model year Fords available right now at the dealership. And there's so many easy ways that Two Rivers Ford helps you through the car buying experience. You can call them. Their non-commissioned salespeople are fantastic. I got my vehicle from them last, I think, March. Jonathan Whittlick was my non-commissioned salesperson. That means that they make a paycheck whether they sell you a vehicle or not. 1-800-900-1000, a number as simple as the car buying process at Two Rivers Ford. You can go online at tworiversford.com and custom order your Ford the way that I did. And you can always go out to the dealership in Mount Juliet and test drive the Fords for yourself. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. Custom order your next Ford with Two Rivers Ford. So, whose feet do you place the blame at the most? There's a lot of different places to look. But I think before we read some of your comments on this, I want you to listen to this conversation that Paul Kaharski and myself, I think we were the only two over there. No, actually, that's not true. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean, also off to the side. We were talking to NWI after we wrapped up with Jeff Simmons, and the comments made by Nick were really surprising to me. See if they struck you the same way.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't phrase it well at all. Receivers on this team, since AJ's gone, haven't produced a lot. Today, you guys, I think, collectively produced nothing. Where do you go from here on that?
We just go back to work. No one was saying this, earlier in the year, when we were making plays. So I'm just going to ignore all that and go back to work and just try to get better and make the plays that we need to make. That's all it is. It was a bad game, had a few bad plays, and we just got to go back to work.
How frustrating is it for the offense? It does seem like in the second half you guys are having struggles. putting away games after things have been going well early.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for sure. I mean, we want to go out there and score every drive. That's the goal. So, we just got to, like I said, we got to go back to work. And, there's a standard that we've set. We got to live up to that and meet that standard. And it starts with me, myself. I hold myself to a high standard. And you got to go out there and just perform day in, day out. And whatever opportunities we do have, we got to take advantage of them.
I feel like Malik did second start.
Yeah, I feel like he did well out there. Definitely improved from last week. Just commanding the huddle procedurally, making sure guys are in the right spots and taking care of the football. So it was good to see him get better this week.
So that's our conversation in the locker room with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Nika says his answer is so reckless. It's the first part, right? Nobody was saying these things when we were making plays. And it hit me in real time, but I was sitting on the flight this morning coming home, and it's incredibly early hours, and that's, this is what it is on a Monday after a road trip, right? You just early morning, airport, got to be back probably by 9 a.m. so I can make a 10 o'clock radio show start, right? And I'm sitting on the plane, and I'm writing my article after the game, or I'm going through my article after the game, and I'm looking at quotes. And I read that Nick Westbrook quote back to myself as I typed it out. And I said, what the hell is he talking about? Like, buddy, it is shocking. The lack of self-awareness there. This man has 7 catches on the year. 7. It was a weird moment. I think he just got caught up in the air because Kaharski's question on the front end, and you heard, I think, Paul, to start it a little bit. He didn't ask his first question poorly, or he didn't ask his first question well. You didn't hear the first question, but I think it bothered Nick a little bit. So you already had him a little bit riled up, and then when you say, and they didn't have a catch last night. Like no wide receivers had a catch for this football team last night. You know what I'm saying? So that it is a fair assessment to say you guys didn't produce. The AJ graphic is up there on the screen for everybody to see. The conversation around this has been what the Titans could have been if they'd have found a way to make the AJ Brown situation work. You ask the question, and he gives you that response. And I don't expect these guys to be, checking everybody else's box score, but Nick has to know that he has less than 10 catches on the year. Nick has to know that Robert Woods is the only wide receiver on this roster with a touchdown. Nick has to know that they were 5 of 16 passing with Malik Willis, and that it could have been a much different game had 2 of those incompletions been caught. One by Westbrook-Ikhine, a more difficult degree of catch than the one that just Chris Conley let bounce off his hands, but both would have been so necessary and so critical for the Titans to be able to go on the road and win that game. I think that they find a way to win it with Tannehill in the lineup, because Ryan Tannehill will give them an opportunity to succeed beyond the failures of the wide receivers. But now you see, when Malik is in there, a perfect pass, 2 perfect passes, and just doink, and one bobbled by Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. A to Z Sports Primetime from the Superbook Sports Studios. We're going to read more of your comments here in just a second. I place the majority of the blame on Chris Conley and Nick Westbrook, because they could have changed the game, and just neither of them capable of making a play in a massive spot. Those 2 plays, very well the difference in that game. But I'm curious to know who you think about it. We'll get to your comments here in just a second, right after I remind you that the place that you need to go for the Intel Edge you need to succeed is the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com will get you that Intel Edge to get you your dream address without the stress. You can't sell without the intel that only the Ashton team can provide. That's why they're the best. That's why they're the team that your favorite teams trust. I loved my experience with the Ashton Group when I bought my home almost 4 years ago. You will do the same, whether you're buying or selling. Do so with the Intel Edge that's only available at GaryAshton.com. So, looking around, I mean, you can't place the blame on the defense. The defense did everything they could. Mahomes, that 3rd and 17 rush that he had, to convert in a massive spot. It was shades of the AFC Championship game in January of 2020, where the Titans did so well to get up on the Chiefs. They had the game in control. All of a sudden, Rashaan Evans misses a tackle. Mahomes scrambles in for a touchdown before the half. Thing totally snowballs on them. It took 4 quarters for that to happen. It took overtime for that to happen between the Titans and the Chiefs last night. They played him so damn well and made it so hard on Mahomes, on Travis Kelce, and still those guys are just, they're superhuman, right? You can't place the defense couldn't have done anything more. As many times as I run through that, there's penalties in there, there's special teams penalties, there's offensive line penalties, they continue to be penalized at a far more frequent rate than previous Mike Vrabel teams have been. I believe, let me look at the game book if I still have it up, but I believe they had themselves 10 penalties and the Chiefs had 9, or maybe that's flip-flopped. Either way, a tremendous amount of laundry being thrown around on both sides of this thing. Malik, I thought things faded, obviously, but I thought Malik made some great throws. Again, had those two incompletions been caught by Conley and by Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, we're having a much different conversation. They got explosive plays. They got a zone read game going. You could look at Todd Downing and say, the effectiveness, the efficiency of the offense just completely evaporated in the second half yet again. They scored points, but still, it was a very, very difficult situation. There was a couple of, they stopped the run more efficiently, the Chiefs did, in the second half, but goodness, I mean, just what a mess. I think that there's a lot of this. And then, at the top of this thing, I think that you have to look around, and I think you have to say, well, I mean, Wilson Gary puts it to John Robinson. He didn't take the opportunity to get better receivers. He's not good with first-round picks, so why not give it up for a good receiver? Well, Wilson, here's the thing, because you're right. They could have done something at the deadline. It doesn't have to be a star wide receiver. It just has to be somebody competent. I'm watching Deshaun Jackson tonight. Deshaun Jackson was available. Deshaun Jackson had a 16-yard reception. I'm not saying that Deshaun Jackson is, he's 36 years old, but he's still got a higher level of ability and production than guys like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Chris Conley. That caliber of player is out there. They needed help. They didn't get it. They're riding this thing out without Treylon Burks. We'll see if he's available. Mike Vrabel was very complimentary of the progress that Treylon Burks made during his IR stint, and he has not yet been designated to return, but perhaps we'll see that this week. It opens up a 3-week window for him to practice without having to be activated. So we'll see how that goes for them. Kyle Phillips remains on injured reserve. Racey McMath sounds like a more serious injury with this hip, because he's been cleared for quite some time and they have not even designated him to return to practice. So at this point, I don't know what that means and what he would even look like should he come back this season. But that is also out there. So I'm gonna say this, Wilson. John Robinson did not make a move at the deadline. What those reasons were, we don't know. He hasn't talked publicly. The only conversation I've had with John was on the elevator down to field level last night, and we were talking about he's lost 41 pounds, and I looked at him. I go, "You're looking pretty svelte." That was about he's not going to tell me anything while we're sitting in an elevator talking about bullshit before a game, and certainly not right before the game when they hadn't made yet official the decision on Tannehill, even though we all knew he wasn't going to play. But John Robinson hasn't given public media comments, I think, since training camp, maybe the start of the season. So start of the season, roster cut down day. So with all that being said, I'm going to withhold more harsh judgment of the front office until I see a sample size with Burks, with Phillips, that is reasonable. And if I don't, injury is difficult to predict, but there is certainly going to need to be a level of accountability there that to this point, John hasn't felt a need to answer for. Let's talk about Frank Reich. Let's talk about dysfunction. The only thing more dysfunctional than the Titans wide receiver situation is the entire Colts franchise. It's been a bit of a mess. Not John Robinson. Jim Irsay just wrapped up a press conference in Indianapolis. Introducing Jeff Saturday, who's had zero coaching experience outside of like the middle school level, apparently, or the high school level a little bit. He's been on TV for quite some time now, and now he's the new Colts head coach. We're going to talk about this together. The question that I'm going to ask you on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is simply this. What was a crazier day for the Colts? Andrew Luck retiring or everything that went down today with Frank Reich's firing? Let's talk about it together in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. What was the crazier day for the Colts? Andrew Luck's retirement in 2018 or Frank Reich getting fired today? We will talk about it right after I tell you about Superbook Sports, where you can go to put your money where your mouth is. Literally, you want to do some talking? Do it with your knowledge in the Superbook Sports app. You can take the fight to the best odds makers on the strip at superbook.com. They are there to set the best odds boosts and promotions for you, as well as great lines and specific odds on Tennessee teams when you download the Superbook Sports app. Superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So, what was a crazier day for the Colts? Because today was pretty nuts. Randy Howard says definitely Luck set that franchise back 10 years. And there has certainly been a domino effect because he retired right at about the time that they were really starting to get the offensive line right. But I don't know. The combination of Frank Reich getting fired today and them hiring Jeff Saturday, I thought was wild, just totally wild. And to hear Aaron Rappaport tell it on the NFL Network, sounds like it goes even deeper than that.
Yeah, not to short his resume, but I think you guys left out that his high school team did make the playoffs one year.
They did win one playoff
head
game.
Coach, so
yeah,
one playoff. Yeah, so there you go. So that's definitely something. So there's so much going on here with the Colts, and it's not just who is going to fix this offense. I mean, you watch them against the Patriots. Hard to imagine anyone fixing anything that is happening on the field this year, let alone they literally don't have any offensive coordinator, a head coach, or an OC who's called plays, who's designed an offense, who's really done anything. So hard to imagine they will fix this, but we'll see. I guess stranger things have happened somewhere, some way. There's also the thought of owner Jim Irsay needing to know what is going on in his organization. And the fact that he is presumably without a lot of coaches on the staff. There's a lot of challenges. No doubt keeping the players engaged will be difficult. Saturday is beloved in Indianapolis. Maybe that helps, but a challenging year in Indy for many.
It's wild that they are so poorly run. I mean, they've squandered only one Super Bowl between Manning and Luck for basically 20 years between the two of them. More than 20 years, I would think, when you add up their cumulative time. I can't remember. I know Peyton. I know Peyton had 18 years, and I can't remember how many were with the Broncos, whether it was 3 or 4. I feel like it might have been more than I remember. Either way, like one Super Bowl out of that. They haven't hosted a home playoff game since like 2014. It's wild. I mean, they are really, really spiraling and have not been able to kind of pull themselves out of it since then. So Luck is the crazier thing because it sets all of this in motion. But I mean, the way that Jim Irsay seems by the day to get more and more involved with the Colts situation as a meddlesome owner or a very hands-on owner, it's not an easy job to take when you're basically the guy that he hired. They have 2 former NFL head coaches on that staff that they just completely passed over for a guy who's got zero experience. Gus Bradley has been an NFL head coach for many, many years prior to going back in as a defensive coordinator. They have a couple of different qualified coaches who should be able to manage the situation. And by the way, have worked for the organization and been in some level of coaching. And instead, Irsay just goes and hires his boy. But Jeff Saturday's good. I mean, Jeff Saturday knows football. It's not like anybody's questioning Jeff's acumen. It's just the circumstance that finds him here basically as a mole for Jim Irsay. That really sucks, man. And, I don't think it's Jeff's fault. He got the call. He said, okay. How many people would turn an opportunity like that down, even if you don't have the experience? And Jim Irsay saying the best thing about it is that he doesn't have experience. So he's not, I'll read the exact quote from Irsay because God knows there's been some crazy ones popping out all over the place around the Frank Reich press or the Jim Irsay press conference that was just being held right now. Never hired a losing head coach is the quote under Jim Irsay's name. But this is what he says of the situation for Jeff Saturday and how he prefers that Jeff Saturday does not have experience. Irsay has invoked the likes of Don Shula and Tony Dungy in speaking about Jeff Saturday, who is the coach for 8 more games, hopefully more, is what Jim Irsay says. I'm glad he doesn't have NFL experience. Says he's glad Saturday hasn't learned the fear NFL coaches have and takes a shot at analytics. It's crazy. And Chris Ballard's keeping his job. Wild to me that, and I know Frank Reich is heavily involved in the quarterback decisions that have gotten them to this point outside of Luck retiring. And Frank has been heavily involved in talking them into, okay, this is going to be the right quarterback for us. Give me the veteran who I know, the known commodity. And they haven't been able to make that work really since. Phillip Rivers maybe a little bit for a hot second. But damn, I just think that the situation for the Colts is so bizarre. And Andrew Luck sets all of this in motion when he retired in dramatic fashion, or at least Adam Schefter helped make it a little more dramatic back in 2018, 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. It seems kind of crazy to say. Let's wrap things up. It's just now halftime. We'll do this as a free site, and then we'll get you back in time for the second half of the Ravens and the Saints. The question I am going to ask you, that producer Reed has put together this evening, simply, who wore it better, Kirk Cousins or Adam Schefter? We got videos for you. We're going to get into it here in just a second, right after I tell you about TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch. It's a fantastic experience, a fantastic opportunity for you to get your fitness journey started, to meet your goals, to get ahead of things. You don't need to wait till New Year's resolutions when everybody's doing it and you don't have that kind of forward momentum. Now is the opportunity for you to get started and make progress so you're well ahead of the game. It doesn't matter what level of fitness you are. TrueMav Fitness has classes and coaches that will individualize your approach to make sure that you are consistently improving, challenging yourself without being overexerted. If you don't like the group classes, they've got personal training. If you don't like personal training, they've got an open gym. You can sign up for your TrueMav Fitness membership at TrueMavFitness.com. And while you're there, get your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. Who wore it better, Kirk Cousins or Adam Schefter? That's the question. If you haven't seen the video, the Minnesota Vikings are rolling right now. They were celebrating on the team plane. Dalvin Cook got out his phone. Kirk Cousins is decked out in everybody's chain and out here just having the time of his life. Pasty, shirtless Kirk Cousins with literally every player on that team's ice on. He's killing it, and they're having the time of their life. The team loves it. They're breaking down the huddle. You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3. You like that? Like, it's crazy. It's all nuts. And then Adam Schefter gets on national television tonight in the pregame and says, okay, Kirk, I'll see you, and I'll raise you.
You like that? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my God. Who knew Adam Schefter was hiding Chewbacca on his chest? Do you like that? Holy chest hair. Do you like it? I like that. Okay, good. Let's make sure you like it. Oh, my gosh. We got to sign the triple arm. Sound the triple arm. What is going on here? Hey.
We do have one more bit of business.
Hey, you got to put that. You got to put that.
It's brought to you by...
You know what? I think Adam Schefter wins. I did not know Adam Schefter was in that good of shape. Adam Schefter is considerably older than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins obviously is a professional football player. You expect him to be physically fit. Adam Schefter looked great with his shirt off. I'll say it. He killed it. You got to have some pretty good confidence to be able to do that in a big spot. You saw people walking around the outside of the Superdome down there in New Orleans pregame, looking at a shirtless Adam Schefter with a bunch of fake chains on, doing a little dance, making a little love, get down tonight. Hairy-chested Adam Schefter out here shirtless, living. Good for Schefter, man. I think you got to give it to Adam. That's, like I said, I would not do that on national television. Are you kidding me? But, most of us, it would look like the Truffle Shuffle as opposed to, whatever whatever this is that Adam Schefter and Kirk Cousins have going on. Golf clap for Schefter, says Stephen King. Yeah, I think that's the move. Dog versus face, which is I don't know why it makes me laugh every time I read that. You don't want to be the first guy with your shirt off at the party. Unless you know you look good with your shirt off, then you're the first person to take your shirt off at the party every damn time. He adds, unless you are the party. That's right. Adam Schefter came to party, baby. You love to see it. It's going to do it for us tonight on Primetime. Enjoy the rest of Monday Night Football. Radio show tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun, 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We'll be hanging out with you. Lucas is back. Robert Walsh and myself will have a great time. And if I don't catch you on the radio show, I will talk to you tomorrow night on A to Z Sports Primetime.
There's
All right, we haven't scored a point since I came in here. I am gone, guys.
What? That's it?
We got a couple more questions.
No, that's it. Peace out by the GM.